Okay, we're gonna do a quick video. Well, it's not gonna be quick, but we're gonna do a video on several different methods of spore germination. Generally, spore germination should be done on low nutrient agar, essentially just water agar. These plates are water agar. And if you want to look at stuff under a microscope, it's best to do this on clear agar. So I do my LME as blue and my water agar as clear. It helps me identify what plates they are without marking too much information on them. So we're going to start with a basic method real quick. Out of there. So what we're going to do here is the standard method of spore germination. Also, your spores should not be, your spore swabs should not be super dark. This is from a pigmented fungi. This is about as dark as you want them. If they're super dark, they either were done from a spore print or they weren't done correctly and you have a bunch of gill tissue on it. So you want to roll. I'm spinning the swab as I drag it. And you can even cross drag it back and forth. Go that way and that way. If you're doing it with one type. And then I like to snap them afterwards to make sure I know that that one's done and it takes up less space in the trash. Then we're going to wrap that plate and mark it. Tidal wave, spore germination, and then 7 something. I'll come back and get the date on it later with the full stack. So that's one. That's a standard method of doing it. And then we're going to do something called a grab and drag method next. This is typically done when you're trying to isolate single spores, but for breeding, for getting monotherions, but it's not always successful. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab tweezers. You can do this with a scalpel too, but it's not as easy. And there's a little trick you can do. If you're having trouble grabbing a piece and pulling it off, you can spray a very small amount of sterile water in the air above this to get it wet. And be able to pull off this little clump easier. Which may have been a good, there we go, I got it. You can stick swabs right side up in a cup like that if you're in front of a flow hood. And then you take and you press into the agar and you drag it. And the idea for this is to get the germination points on both sides of the gap that you've made in the agar. And we're going to sterilize this tool. Alright, this next method is if you're having troubles germinating something. It's called the dunk method. I generally don't like doing this method, but it's kind of like a last resort. If you have multiple swabs of one phenotype that you really want to get going and you're just struggling getting it to germinate for whatever reason, whether the swabs are badly made, super old, or whatever. Your agar might be the wrong pH for the species you're working with. But what you do is you do your normal thing and then you sink the tip in. Oh, you want to snap it off as close as you can to the tip. We're going to try to use the tweezers for this. Sterile tweezers. There we go. This is where a lot of people make the mistake doing this, is they don't get it broken close enough to the tip. You want to insert it and then snap it off fully. Like that. You do not want to accidentally touch the wood shaft into there at all. You want to prevent as much of the wood being in there as possible. You can see all the wood is touching the lid, and the tip of the swab is buried into the agar. The method works, but it's kind of spotty. Like, if you're already having troubles, there's no reason to not try it. Now, the last two methods here are going to be with spore prints. And my preferred method is to take a spore print and turn it into a spore swab and then use one of the other methods. So we're going to grab a fresh spore swab real quick. Just to demonstrate. one, that's whatever. This is just for the video. Alright. We might as well do both right away at the same time. The other one is scraping some spores off of the swab into the agar. This can be done with the back of a scalpel blade. And this one I don't like because you kind of have to leave your plate open to do it. That's how we do that one. I don't prefer that one. I like trapdooring my plate. And to be able to do that, you make a spore swab out of your spore print. This also allows your spore print less air exposure, so your print can stay sterile and be used for more purposes. Also, this gets a lot more spores on the plate. I can see a dark streak of spores across the plate right here. I did it like that, but I can see one of the streaks clearly defined on the plate. And when you take a spore swab from a spore print, there are hundreds of thousands of spores on there. It's way more effective. It's just a more sterile process and clearly more effective. That's how we do that. There we go. If anybody has questions, feel free to say something in the comments.